Shadow Minister Vicky Foxcroft.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm glad that we've had the opportunity to debate the positive impact that youth services have on our young people. Youth centres provide young people with safe spaces in which they can learn, develop trusted relationships, build friendships and develop interpersonal skills. And they should be at the heart of our communities. But after nearly a decade of austerity, sadly, many parts of our country have no recognisable youth services at all. Now, I want to begin by thanking my honourable member for Brighton Kemp Town for his persistence in securing this debate. My honourable friend is chair of the APBG on Youth Affairs, which recently conducted a parliamentary inquiry into youth services. And he spoke eloquently about his areas of expertise, which are wide and varied, and I learned a lot from that. He also spoke about the importance of evidence and why he was involved in this work. Now, I hope that the Minister responds positively to their recommendations, and I look forward to her response. Now, we also heard a number of very passionate speeches. We heard for the honourable member from West Ham, and she spoke passionately about knife crime and the impacts of trauma on our communities and how youth services can help in prevention, building resilience and ensuring that our children have those trusted adults that they can go to who can connect them with the relevant agencies. And we also had other passionate speeches from the honourable member for High Peak, who spoke emotively about Fairfield Youth Club in her constituency and how when she spoke to young people there, they spoke of the need for a safe space and how sadly this was their only safe space and it was the only way of keeping them out of the grips of gangs locally. Now, many other members also mentioned the importance of youth work in tackling youth violence. The honourable member for Coventry South, my neighbouring MP and friend, the honourable member for Lewisham West and Penge, who talked about the impact of losing a young person's life, Jay Hughes, on the local community and the role that youth work can play in rebuilding that community. The member for Sheffield Brightside and Hillsborough, the honourable member for Rhondda and the honourable member for Stafford also raised these points. And the Minister spoke about the great role of NCS alongside with the honourable member of Crawley and the honourable member of East Worthing and the honourable member for Blackpool South, who raised some positive points, but also who raised some questions, which kind of leads me on to some points that I'd like to touch on. Currently, 95% of all government spending on youth services goes to the NCS. And this is despite the fact that only 1 in 10 eligible young people participate in their programmes. Since it was established, the NCS has received £1.5 billion, and earlier this year it spent £10 million on a brand refresh. Now let's sink that in. This is alongside a landscape in which spending on youth services has fallen by 70%. 760 youth centres have closed their doors for good. Over 14,000 youth workers have lost their jobs in the last decade. And it's surely unsustainable to spend millions of pounds on a programme which is simply not attracting the numbers when there are hundreds of brilliant youth centres and talented youth workers crying out for funding across the country. Now, we also heard in the debate from the honourable member for Mansfield, who quoted the APPG report and spoke about the importance of family support into adulthood, youth work being one of the only safe spaces for young people, and why we need trusted youth workers. And he also pointed out that there's not enough professionals in the sector and the importance of early intervention, all of which I would completely agree with. And the honourable member for Blackpool South, he spoke about the impact of cuts in terms of council funding and pointed out how Blackpool Council are losing £700 million and the overall impact of these cuts on all of the services that interact with young people and the negative overall effect that this has. So, on this side of the House, we are absolutely committed to rebuilding the youth sector to ensure it is fit for the modern age. a youth sector that has open access, diverse, and has the interests of young people at its heart. And I remember chatting with the CEO of UK Youth about consulting with young people and about the kind of programmes that they wanted to see. And after she got feedback from lots of young people, they put on a course called Money for Life, which focused on budgeting and money management. And they were concerned that no one would turn up, but they were inundated with young people. And this just shows how important it is to have young people at the heart of designing youth work. And we need to make sure that the programmes we create are relevant for them. Labour is also committed to ensuring that our youth services respond to the unique challenges that our young people face. Youth centres should be safe spaces for every young person, where they can speak to adults they trust and who have built up relationships with them over time. And trauma-informed training will be necessary to ensure our youth workers are equipped to deal with the various issues and challenges that young people face today. Now, before I end my remarks, I have several questions for the Minister. Right. Successful grantees of the Government's Youth Endowment Fund will need to demonstrate their plans to spend £100,000 or more by March 2020. Now, this freezes out small charities from the outset, setting some of our brilliant grassroots organisations up for failure. Now, does the Minister agree? And if not, can she outline exactly how the Youth Endowment Fund will support small charities? And in what ways has the Government consulted with young people to ensure that the Youth Endowment Fund is directed to the right organisations and projects? And does the Government have any plans for any potential underspend from successful grantees of the Youth Endowment Fund? Right. And we all know, we've said this many times in the Chamber, that 3 till 6 p.m. is a particularly dangerous time for our young people. So does the Government have plans to provide youth work during these hours as part of its public health strategy to tackle violence and keep our young people safe? And what date will the Government be publishing its review of the statutory youth guidance? You know, we've talked about this many times, but we still don't seem to have a date for this. And what work is the Minister doing to ensure that youth services receive adequate funding in the upcoming spending review? And Bernardo's and the Children's Society estimate that this needs to be around £3 billion. And finally, UK Youth and other leading youth bodies wrote to the new Prime Minister today asking him to make Britain the best country in the world to be young. So will the Minister call on the new Prime Minister to back the asks in this letter, and in particular to unlock the £50 million NCS underspend and deliver a 10-year spending commitment to the first ever youth charter? Now, our young people are fantastic, but in order to reach their potential, they need to be given the right opportunities. And it is vital that fully funded youth services are a part of that picture, services which are varied, accessible and fit for the modern age. So, following his speech yesterday, if the new Prime Minister wants to be known as a dude and not a dud, he could start with our youth services and he could make sure that they are delivered locally with a universal offer, diverse provision, and established with and for our young people. So, dude, don't under-deliver. We need action, not rhetoric.
Minister Mims Davis.
Yeah.